10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello there, and good morning and welcome. You are listening to the Monday Morning Break, broadcasting live from Germany, 17th of February. I'm your host, Kuttig, and our guest is Phyo Wai Tun.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello there, everyone. It is half term for many of our friends and colleagues in the UK, and I hope those of you on your break, this is the first weekday of your break, that you have some time for self-care, wake up late, catch up with whatever it is you need to catch up, chill a bit, don't think about work. Well, we are really pleased that you have tuned in today. Your support is very valuable to Teachers Talk Radio. I also wanted to say we are always looking for hosts and for guests. So, have a look at our website on www.ttradio.org and browse around and pop us a message. Now, today, I would like to reflect on how privileged we are as teachers. Well, I'd like to say we here in most parts of the world, most of us anyway, despite the challenges we may face at our workplace in the systems that we're working in, sometimes we feel that things are so difficult, things are so hard, and we think, well, this is all not something I signed up for, and I really wish I could get out of the system, do something else. I'm not trying to make light of anybody's difficulties or struggles, okay? Don't get me wrong. I'd just like for us maybe to take a step back and try and look for the positives rather than get bogged down by the negatives. I know it's not easy, but on this journey of reflection, for me being on Teachers Talk Radio and talking to the various different guests, that have come on my show, it's very much reflective practice. And my guest today is Phyo Wai Tun, who's going to help me reflect on how privileged I am, and a lot of us are here. Well, Phyo is an English language teacher from Myanmar, who's actually currently a teacher at a college in England, and therefore he's been able to join us today because he's on his half-term break. And I thought I'd like specifically to talk about English language teaching in Myanmar because for me, it's quite an unusual setting. I'm having grown up, to Vietnamese and German parents and grown up in Singapore and being around a little. I know very little about Myanmar, and I think it's quite an unusual setting. And there's quite a lot that we can learn from teachers working in such challenging situations.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Meet USA Study, your one-stop platform for guiding students through their college application journey. Access up-to-date resources on universities, programs, scholarships, and application requirements, all in one place. Get easy to access tools, personalised timelines, expert tips, application templates, and exclusive webinars with admissions officers to help your student stand out. Visit usastudy.co.uk or call Phil at 0800 612 8271 because every student deserves the opportunity to shine with USA Study.
So, Phyo, thank you. Thank you for joining us. It's actually quite an honor for us, well, for me, anyway, to speak to someone about Myanmar and actually to speak to you, really. I mean, we know each other like, ships in the night in the digital world. So I'm really, I'm thrilled that you're here and you're here to share with us stories from Myanmar. How are you today?
Hi, Kendak. Thank you very much indeed for inviting me to join this talk and then talk about something about ELT in Myanmar, my own country. It's an honor for me to. Thank you, Kendak.
Yeah, how are you? How are you today? First weekday of your half-term break?
It's a great break and the weather is nice today, so it's good.
Yeah, that helps. Okay, well,
Yeah.
we have at this point just under an hour, so let's begin. Can you just, for our audience, tell us a little bit, some background knowledge about Myanmar, about your country? Anything?
Uh,
No?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so, so I would like to relay something about the English language teaching in Myanmar. So, the ELT in Myanmar has been actually, shaped by several political and historical events. And when we talk about English language teaching or the status of English, so we need to consider these background situations. So there are seven major periods that has a huge impact on the current situation of ELT in Myanmar, starting
Mm-hmm.
from the colonial era, and then the independence period, and then the military rule, and of course, and then we get back to democratic transition in 2011 to 2020, but unfortunately, and then the military coup happened again, and now we are in the post-coup period. So
Right.
it's so it has a huge impact on the ELT in Myanmar. Um, so this is so just a brief history of the situations in my country. Yeah,
That's interesting. I would never actually have thought of how, the teaching and learning of a foreign language in a country was so entwined in the political history of the country. I mean, okay,
yeah,
no, now that I say it, I sound a bit silly because I think Vietnam was similar,
yeah,
where in the history of Vietnam, when it was French colonial, or when the French were there. So French was the main foreign language that was taught. And then under communist rule with the connections to Russia, they dropped French and Russian was taught. I know a lot of my cousins, well, almost all my cousins from my mother's side who are Vietnamese, right?
yeah,
They all had not French, Russian as their foreign language, and
yeah,
they're not much older than me. But apart from that, I mean, this for me is really an eye opener. So what has happened then? How have these various periods impacted? I can imagine during the colonial period, so British colonial period, English would have been
yeah,
the language. What happened then after
yeah.
that?
Yeah, so it's like I would say it's like the status of English and English language teaching is like a roller coaster.
Oh
So
gosh.
during the during the colonial period, it's a period of the rise of English and uh, the rise of English, as we know, because we were under British rule, and
Mm-hmm.
English replaced the Burmese, our national language, as the official language in law administration.
Oh
um,
gosh. So it actually
yeah,
replaced.
yeah,
Okay.
it was replaced.
That's
And
different. I have to say, sorry, Phil, that's different from from in Singapore, because in Singapore under colonial rule, they still
Yeah,
had the ethnic languages, Mandarin and Malay. But it never did replace, the ethnic languages. Okay, sorry. Okay,
yeah,
keep
yeah.
going.
Okay. So and then when we got the independence in 1948, and then it's called the post-independence period. So it's again it's a gradual decline of English because we got independence, and although English remained as an administrative language, uh, Burmese we changed Burmese as the national language again and the medium of instruction in public schools. Uh, and then again, so after that period, so we got the military rule, and we call it the socialist era. So it's around 1962 to 1988. It's a period of suppression of English, I would say that, because all the schools were nationalized and English was devoted as the language of colonizers, and uh, so university use Burmese translations of English textbooks, and so the status of English, uh, have been down in that period.
Yeah,
Um,
because people didn't
yeah,
want, or rather the rulers, they didn't want that
yeah,
connection to the colonial
y-
past. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they see English as a threat, and then so nationalism was popular at that time. So, but after that, after 1988, we have issue student protest and the resistance to military rule, and then we have a partial revival of English that time. So English was reintroduced at the primary level, and we used English as a medium of instruction in most of the subjects again. But unfortunately, it's also a still and a military rule, and there has been some university and schools closure at that time. So in terms of education quality, it was a period of I would say declining education quality. Um, but the modernization of ELT and will be within the recent decades, 2011 to 2020, because it was a democratic transition and the education sector was reformed. We have got so many education reforms and then with the hope of improving quality of education. English became more popular because foreign investment coming in, and tourism was popular at that time, and then students were exporting for international scholarships. So so many reforms were being done, and in terms of ELT, we have introduced communicated teaching methods that time, and there have been many CPD training opportunities for teachers as well. um, but again, when the before the coup happened within the COVID-19 period, I think it has a huge impact in almost every country in the world. And some countries, changed to online teaching. We're also hoping to, uh, do online teaching that time, but we're not ready that. And so there has been disruptions in education, formal education, in basic education sector, and also the higher education sector. um, but we were hoping to move to online teaching in around 2021, but then the coup happened again, and all the schools were closed. Many teachers and students, boycotted the regime, and they didn't go to state schools, and then. But this has turned, to the other side of, the boom in the online language schools. That's also something I would like to highlight today. And then community-led, you know, schools that has emerged out of these difficulties and challenges. So yeah,
Okay.
that's yeah, so far.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow, that is a lot. That is a lot of upheaval, a lot of changes.
yeah,
It does make me, just listening to the story, it just makes me wonder, if I were in Myanmar, I would never then, in the middle of all that upheaval and changes of schooling and nationalization, I would never ever in my wildest dreams have thought of going into language teaching. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's like almost every generation has to start from the ground up,
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
How did you yourself and your colleagues, I know some of your colleagues and some of your friends are here with us, listening in. How did you get into language teaching? What even made you think,
Uh,
well, this is something
yeah.
I could do as a career?
Oh, yeah. It means like so it's also something related with the culture in my country. So being a teacher is considered as a kind of noble profession in my country. Uh, Teachers are assumed as, educating young people, children. So, and we assume that this is kind of noble profession, and we are proud of being a teacher. So when I joined, the teacher training institution back in 2010 or 2011, yeah, I also, I had a huge motivation and to be a teacher at that time. Um, but my career also has also changed, but depending on that political situations that I referred. I started my career as a high school teacher at the basic education sectors. But then when the coup happened, it changed into being teaching, English online courses.
Okay.
So it's a kind of shifting, depending on the
Yeah.
situation.
That
Yeah,
was 2011, wasn't it? Because you said 1988 to
yeah,
2011 was the kind of democratic government, and you were in the middle of that.
yeah,
And then the
yeah.
coup was in
20,
2011,
yeah, 2021. Sorry. Yeah,
2021. Um,
yeah,
I I have to say though, a coup in the middle of COVID, that's
yeah, yeah,
mind-boggling, mind-boggling.
yeah.
Just out of curiosity, when did you leave Myanmar to where you are now?
Uh, yeah. So, by the way, so sorry. The situation we often refer to as the COVID plus coup is termed as COVID. Might be a new
Okay,
term. Yeah,
COVID.
we can initiate. Yeah, COVID. The
Yeah.
situation we have faced. Yeah. Yeah. So in 2022, I got a scholarship to do my master's in the UK. So I left my country in 2022, yeah, to
Hmm.
do a master degree. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So let's go and let's talk about then language teaching first before we dive deeper
yeah,
into ELT.
yeah,
At present in Myanmar, the main official language, the administrative language is English. Is Burmese, correct? That's the main language in Myanmar.
yeah. Now
Burmese.
it's now, yeah, Burmese, yeah,
The language of education is also
yes.
Burmese.
Uh, yes. So s- actually, so so it depends on the higher education sector, or most course books are written in English, and we
Hmm.
assume that English should be a medium of instruction.
Yeah.
But most teachers just we use Burmese when we teach. So um, kind of translation, or how can I say, focused teaching is quite popular. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Would
But English is, yeah, the only language we teach as a foreign language or as a
okay.
school subject. Yeah. Yeah.
So no, let's say no German, no Japanese, no Vietnamese, no Mandarin, no Malay, no
N-
whatnot.
no, exactly. Yeah. No, none of them.
Can you imagine why that is the case? I mean, apart from the fact that there are no teachers, but
Yeah.
do you think that's lack of interest, or do you think it's just a government policy? They don't want people to know too much, because when you teach language, you'll also introduce people to culture, outside culture.
Yeah. I think yeah, it's a combination of all of these factors, but mostly the popularity might be the significant one. Uh,
Mm,
yes,
okay,
um,
so
yeah,
so
yeah,
I suppose popularity and demand, yeah, I mean, fair enough.
yeah,
If
yeah, yeah,
people,
yeah,
I suppose young people in Myanmar, they can't imagine what else they would do. Say if they were to pick German as a foreign language, like what in the world would they do with it, right? But if they picked
yeah, yeah,
English,
yeah,
it does for young people from Myanmar. English would open many doors, either locally for them to work in, the tourism sector or to go abroad,
yeah, yeah.
like you. Okay. Teacher education, how long is teacher education? So you go to university, and what does teacher education look like? How does the training look like?
Uh, so so we've got two teacher training institutions, two major teacher training institutions uh, uh, in our country. So if we complete a degree from the institutions, we can work as high school teachers at the basic education sector. But where there are also teacher training colleges around the country. So I think I couldn't recall the exact number, but there are around like 15 to 20 colleges. So these colleges, train teachers who teacher to be working in the primary and then the secondary education sectors. Yes. These are
Okay.
the major teacher training institutions, yeah, run by the state.
Okay, cool. So we wanted, or rather, the show is about teacher resilience and teacher
Yeah,
creativity in Myanmar. So now that we've got an idea of the background and how, the English has gone up and down in focus in
yeah,
education through the various political upheavals, let's look at how let's touch on teacher resilience. It's not
yes,
something I would naturally connect with my job as an English language teacher. But then again, like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm work in a very privileged setting. Despite all those work drama and things like that, I am very privileged. So I
yeah.
don't have to be as resilient as sometimes I think I should be. Teacher resilience. Why is that a big topic for Myanmar, for teachers in Myanmar?
So I think, yeah, I mean, resilience is a good word, a kind of word we use, uh, to refer to talk about, something so much challenges or difficulty we people have, and then we tend to say that if they are, surviving in this situation, we tend to uh, refer that as resilience. It's a good word to refer to that situation. It's a good word to say, but I think teachers who we assume as resilient should also deserve recognition, and then support, things like that. So that's something I would like to say in advance when we say resilient. Uh, but in So like I said, teachers in Myanmar, they are, I think, they are resilient because considering the situations they have been facing, the challenges, the difficulties, uh, are huge, and so sometimes we can even imagine so the difficulty of the challenges they have, but they never give up, and they still keep trying. Before the talk, I put a survey on my social media, and then trying to collect some of the comments or message they want to pass. And then one of
Mm-hmm.
the teacher filled out the survey, and she was failing she said when she was failing the farm, she was in bomb shelter.
Oh
So,
gosh.
yeah, because of the military aircraft bombing in that areas. I mean, like, this is just one incident of highlighting the difficult situation they are having. But as
Hmm.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting actually, Phyo, that
Yeah,
you mentioned that, because I think a lot of what we hear in the press, right? A lot of what we hear on the news, on the radio, we hear the big things like, the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, in Germany, currently the elections, and across parts of Europe, the anti foreigner sentiment. We were aware of things that happen in the Middle East. And Myanmar, I mean, I don't know if this is because we're physically far removed, or
yeah,
it's just not being reported. I think I did read somewhere else a couple of weeks ago, where it was a report about, I think, about Sudan, where
yeah,
somebody said, well, you've got all these things happening, but it's not just those things, because we're suffering too. And when you mentioned this with Myanmar, it's, with and sharing with the teacher, who's saying that as she was filling out the form, she was sitting in a bomb shelter because of the raids going overhead. That for me is really shocking.
yeah,
That
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I
Um,
am aware that there's upheaval, but for me, honestly, to be honest, I really, really thought that things had kind of settled. So to hear
yeah,
that there are even more colleagues that are, in such, how what would you say, in
yeah,
such
situations.
upheaval, such
Yeah,
situations. Yeah. What other challenges?
yeah.
What else did you get from your,
Um,
survey?
Yeah. So, so the situations, if we get back to the, let's say, even in a normal situation, the my country, when I describe the situations in my country, I tend to use the term called teaching in difficult circumstances. So, it's also a term usually used in, the literature about referring to teaching in large, public schools in the global south countries. Uh, so so the situations that we are having now, I tend to use the term called teaching in politically difficult circumstances. So as I mentioned, so we have so teachers faced such kind of fear or anxiety about some kind of danger that can happen to them and to the students, and that's one thing.
What
Um,
could happen to
even
them, Phil?
yeah.
What are some of the things that could happen to teachers or students?
You mean in that situation?
Yeah, for your colleagues in Myanmar, what are, like, could they be taken away, or could the government just come in and say, "Oh, you're teaching that, and that's not okay, and we'll arrest you"? Is that something that could happen? Is that
So it's also a bit, so many things to talk about in that situation too, uh, because of the current revolution happening in our country too. So maybe if we go deeper in that, it might take more time. So uh, yeah,
okay?
some teachers are in danger because of because they opposed the military rules, so they joined some kind, we term at the civil disobedience movement, CDM movement, and the teachers who joined that movement, if they got arrested, if they were found by uh, the military, so yeah, they might get arrested, and so they have such kind of danger. But it's more complicated than that. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but civil disobedience, that's a big word. That's a big word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, wow,
Uh,
that's really, that really puts my, my work drama to shame.
yeah.
It's just nothing. I'm so
Okay.
fortunate. I can still take the bus
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
go to work, you know. Yeah, that's scary. That's scary. And yet, I have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
and yet these colleagues of yours, they still wake up every day and go to work,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Um, As I mentioned, so we have such kind of the local based, the community-led school, and the government-run, the state schools, and then also as part of the COVID, the COVID-19, and then the post-COVID crisis. So the online English language teaching has also been popular in the country. So they also offering some accessible, affordable online courses for students across the country. So I think it's also good to talk a little bit about these online
Mm-hmm.
teaching
Mm-hmm.
situations too. Yeah.
And that's
Um,
allowed? No, not I meant to talk about it. That's definitely allowed.
yeah.
But to
Yeah.
have, so that's kind of an example of creativity, isn't it? Of teacher
Yeah.
creativity to find a way.
Yeah.
And there's no restrictions. I mean, my impression is everything is so restricted, everything is so controlled. Sounds a little bit like old Nazi Germany, with the Stasi and
Yeah.
all that. Sounds a little bit like that. And yet teachers have been, or people have been able to open up these online schools, or found ways of working. I have to
Yeah.
say that
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. Let's
Yeah.
talk
That's
about that.
amazing.
We'll
Yeah.
talk about that, but first we're going to listen to the news. Okay, we'll listen to the
Yeah.
news,
Yeah.
and then we'll come back and talk about teacher creativity.
Yeah.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
BBC News reports on changes to apprenticeships. Businesses employing adult apprentices will now, according to the DfE, have the power to decide whether a maths and English qualification should be part of the prescribed course. This could mean 10,000 more apprentices are able to complete courses every year. According to the news site, more than 90,000 people over the age of 19 began apprenticeships between August and October 2024. However, more than 45% of apprentices drop out of schemes without completing the course. This is according to recent official DfE figures. The government said it hoped that relaxing the rules for apprentices over the age of 19 will ensure more students are both applying for and completing apprenticeships, in sectors particularly where there continues to be high demand, such as healthcare, social care and construction. Apprentices aged 16 to 18 will still have to complete an English and Maths functional skills qualification, equivalent to a GCSE, as a course requirement. The government has also confirmed plans to reduce the minimum duration of an apprenticeship from 12 months to 8 months from August 2025. The move has also been welcomed by many businesses, who say it will help employers fill skills gaps more quickly. Whilst failing to secure a qualification in maths or English is one of the key reasons apprentices do not complete courses, an education think tank is also quoted in the article as saying poor quality schemes are also a factor. The chief executive of Lifetime, England's largest apprenticeship provider, welcomed the changes, but also said he was disappointed the change was not fully extended to apprentices aged 16 to 18. Full details and comments from those following the current apprenticeship courses can be found on the BBC News website. Schools Week carries an opinion piece on workload and changes to Ofsted, focusing in particular on the impact changes and developments can have on staff who work in and leaders of small schools. The piece by the head teacher of a primary school highlights the fact that Department for Education and Ofsted have the same expectations of a school, regardless of its size. The article focuses on the outcome of a Freedom of Information request submitted to Department for Education about the statutory roles a school is required to have a named person for, and a list of the roles it is good practice to have a named person for. The response from the Department for Education, as quoted in the piece, was, "The department holds the information you requested, but it is being withheld because the department is not required to provide information in response to a request if it is already reasonably accessible to you. However, the piece goes on to say that having accessed all of the documentation on the Statutory Guidance for Schools website and running them through an AI program to see how long it would take a human to read them, the outcome was concerning: between 29 and 40 days of uninterrupted work. The article closes with a concern that the information itself is actually not reasonably accessible, and that perhaps finding staff to complete the statutory roles is similarly challenging. In Wales Online, a story about Saturday detentions is featured. Those of a certain age will remember the film The Breakfast Club, which focused on an unlikely mix of students forced to spend a Saturday together after behaviour incidents in school. In Wales, however, a school led by a man dubbed Wales's strictest headmaster, where staff had previously been on strike over physical and verbal abuse from pupils, has just introduced the weekend detentions. The head teacher has said the decision was made because other forms of discipline had not been effective. According to the article, the school has also introduced other creative ways of disciplining pupils, including on some occasions asking their parents to attend class and sit next to them. Poorly behaved pupils have also been asked to carry out supervised litter picking. It's not the first time the school has made media headlines. In the past, it has also featured in the news for enforcing strict uniform policies. Further details can be found on Wales Online. Finally, the Nigerian Guardian reports that a Lagos-based educational institution has unveiled a campus in the UK. The campus will provide English language upskilling courses, leadership training, summer camps for students aged between 10 and 17, and a pre-masters programme for graduates seeking academic refinement before enrolling in UK universities. Speaking at the official launch of the campus at the residence of British Deputy High Commissioner, representatives of the school praised the school's expansion, saying it served as a bridge connecting cultures, ideas and aspirations, and that it symbolised a shared vision for an education system that transcends borders. The British Deputy High Commissioner to Nigeria also highlighted the importance of fostering trade between Nigeria and the UK. Further details can be found online. This has been Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
And this is the Monday Morning Break. You're listening to me, Kuttig, and with me in the studio, I have Phyo Wai Tun, an English language teacher from Myanmar. We have been talking right up to the news. Phyo has been sharing with us about how English language teaching, English language learning, the status of English in schools in Myanmar has been very much impacted by the history of this country, starting from the colonial period, where English had replaced Burmese as the language of education, the language of administration, straight through to independence, and now in this new period called the Cupid, right? The coup during COVID period, which also saw a modernization of English language teaching in Myanmar. What I personally found interesting was that there were no other foreign languages that are taught, or at least not to the best of our knowledge. I'm sure if you wanted to learn French or Vietnamese, there would be a way. But English is predominantly, well, in schools anyway, it's the only foreign language that's taught. I learned also that many textbooks at higher levels at universities are in English, and teachers don't actually necessarily teach in English, but they read all these works, these textbooks, and then they teach in Burmese. So I think also for me as a teacher, I'm thinking, whoa, you really must have that level of language competence in order to be able to, teach like that. We talked about teacher resilience, and Phyo shared that the situation in Myanmar could be described as teaching in challenging political circumstances or difficult political circumstances, and he shared, some of the challenges that his colleagues had shared with him. There's that fear of being arrested. There was a colleague who, at the time of completing, Phyo's survey, was saying that she was in a bunker because of air raids overhead. And from there, now we're going to talk about how creative actually English language teachers, and perhaps teachers in general in Myanmar are. I mean, for me, I'm coming from a very, very privileged place. I'm not sure if I were to live in a situation like that, if I'd have the same resilience. I might actually just say, oh, okay, I think I'm going to change jobs and do something that's a lot more safer. But the teachers in Myanmar, as Phyo was sharing, teaching is a noble profession, and the teachers have been really creative in the work they do. We want to begin with online teaching, Phyo, online ELT.
Yes, can I? Yeah, yes.
Oh, of course you
I
can. Go for
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us
Okay.
about that,
Thank
and
you. Yeah.
how that links to creativity and resilience.
Yeah, I mean, so as I mentioned before, uh, because of the current situation, online language teaching has been a kind of, alternative for most of the students and also teachers to the teaching. But and when it comes to the teaching face-to-face classes in kind of community-based or the other schools happening in the country, honestly, I have limited knowledge about these situations. So, but when it comes to teaching online, I have me myself, taught for a while, and then I also have several teachers teaching online and joining my community of practice. So I think it's better for me to talk about online teaching.
Okay,
So
just a sec
yeah,
though, just a sec, Phil. And this
yeah.
online ELT, these online, either whether they're schools or units where students can learn English and do it online without having, to go out to schools. It's not secret, is it?
Yeah, so it's not secret. Yes,
Okay.
we can do it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So go ahead. Tell
Yeah.
us
Okay.
about, this movement.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So the online teaching, so when we say online teaching, so we're teaching online using internet. Um, so that's internet is kind of, the very basic thing we need. But when we say online teaching in Myanmar, so internet connection is really bad, and then the when it comes to the electricity, so most areas in Myanmar, they got the electricity like around 3 to 4 hours a day. So uh, so they're teaching online, but the internet connection is not that good, and then the
Okay.
electricity is also, having some time around 3 to 4 hours a day. Um, um, so this is the background of online teaching. But regardless of this situation, teachers have been, doing very well. They have been sharing success of their students, stories about them. So that's why I think that this teacher has been resilient and then creative in terms of the way they teach. Yeah,
Okay, let's backtrack. Let's backtrack a little bit.
yeah,
You
yeah,
only have electricity, not you personally, but your
yeah.
colleagues and their students in Myanmar only have electricity for 3 to 4 hours a day.
Exactly. Yes,
And is it
yes,
always at the same time every day? So
yes.
go ahead, go ahead.
Since the coup, yes, yes. Since the military coup, yeah, it's been like this. Internet, when we say internet, some, let's say maybe one third of the, maybe it might not be exactly the exact number, but some areas of the country, also the internet has been cut off in that areas. Even the area I grew up, so we got you know no access to internet in that
So how do you
area.
teach
So
online?
yeah. Yeah, so in that area, we don't teach online. That's something I refer to as the community-based or
Right.
local-based schools running there. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Uh,
no, then that's definitely resilient,
yeah,
to see
exactly. Yeah,
what you can do based on what you have. Okay, so in
yeah,
areas where you've got internet and you only have electricity for 3 to 5 hours and you have a specific time, right? It's always the same time that the electricity is on. I think it reminds me, I don't know, it reminds me of Vietnam. I went to Vietnam when I was 14 with my family, and I remember that after 9 p.m., like water, you would only have water, I think, 2 hours in the morning, like really early, and then
yeah.
2 hours in the evening, and then in between, there's no water, which I think is a bit weird now that I think of it, because how'd you go to the toilet? But then also with the electricity, I remember that. And it was always at set times. So you would
Yeah.
always know when you had electricity, like back then, when you could watch television. Same in Myanmar. So let's say particular times you have electricity. Is that right?
I mean, like, uh,
Or is it just
so
random?
it is random, it's
Oh my God, that's
unpredictable.
even worse.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's even worse. So teachers has been sharing about these challenges. So when we do some CPD training with them together, so that's also one thing, one difficult situation. That's why teacher have been, the way teachers do is a kind of blended teaching. But when we say blended teaching, it's not like using the learning management system or something like this. So they're just doing uh, on and off, the live session, and also the keeping social media group like Facebook group or the Telegram group, using such kind of communication channels to be able to communicate with students, and also to send the recorded lessons or recap of what they have done, or so submitting assignments. So they have been using such kind of informal way of uh, uh, communication channels as part of their teaching. So
Okay. Wow.
considering,
Yeah, now that is interesting. That does require, first of all, that is quite time consuming, I have to say. I mean, when I think
yeah,
about me and having my learning management system, right? We use a particular one at work and I just put everything on it. It's my one-stop shop for, students
yeah,
submitting assignments, me uploading assignments, they me communicating with students. I use that one platform, and you're saying that students and teachers, they're using what's available for them at that time,
yeah,
and they still make progress. One thing that comes to mind then is also these teachers are running these online classes, so to speak, online teaching, um, on as in addition to their regular teaching. Am I correct in understanding that, in addition to their full-time jobs?
no, actually, so these it also depends. Some are doing freelance, some have got the online language schools. They have been running online, and they have been working full time too. So it's a mix of, all of them. Uh, so but mostly I think so teachers are doing, a kind of full time job for teaching online. Yeah,
Wow. Okay. I mean, but that does require quite a degree of creativity. With if
yeah,
if you don't know, well, suddenly we've got no internet, and you've got to switch to the other mode of communication. So that
yeah.
requires quick thinking. Tell me about materials. How easy is it to access what I would call, in my privileged world, mainstream teaching materials? Do your colleagues in Myanmar, do they have access to materials? Do they have to create their own? What's your experience there?
Yeah. As far as I know, mostly they tend to create their own materials, um, and then they use the material available online. So it's not, something very big, but they have to use something only available or accessible to them. Usually they tend to use the global course books for teaching general English language skills, and also for if they are teaching the English as a subject, because we do also need to learn English as a subject as part of the national curriculum. So if they are teaching that as a subject, they use the curriculum that we have developed during a long time before the coup. So they tend to use that new curriculum course book. These course books are a kind of only the main curriculum for them, the material for them. Yeah, and apart from that, they tend to use some things available to them. But mostly I realize that they tend to use something simple, because we need to make it simple, considering the internet connection or
Right,
the electricity. Yeah, so
right.
simplicity and then the flexibility. Yeah, this is something they
Okay.
consider. Yeah,
Yeah, that's an
yeah,
interesting thing. That's so something that not simple in terms of language, right? But
yeah,
in terms of it shouldn't have, I get what you mean because of the bandwidth, right? The
yeah,
available
yeah,
internet, um, and the electricity, the available electricity. You don't want to have something that's so been designed so complex that you when you get started it takes ages to load, or your students, maybe there's somewhere, maybe you as a teacher, you might be somewhere, like you say you've been involved in the online teaching as well, and you're
yeah,
based in the UK, so you have the available bandwidth, you have the available materials. But when you, let's say, you upload it or you make it accessible to your learners, that they can't, yeah, really bad metaphor here, but imagine, person, I did read that somewhere, that
yeah,
somebody had to
yeah,
go up to a hill to get better reception, and that's not what you want. You want your learners, as soon as they're in the lesson, to be able to just get on with it, and not have to wait until it loads, or struggle with
yeah,
pictures,
yeah.
which means then, I suppose, which means that the teachers ultimately create a lot of their own materials.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I'd like to talk next about teacher CPD and community of service.
yeah.
Not community of service, my goodness, community of
Com-
practice, right?
Practice. Yeah,
We'll talk about that shortly.
This show is brought
yeah,
to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Meet USA Study, your one-stop platform for guiding students through their college application journey. Access up-to-date resources on universities, programs, scholarships, and application requirements, all in one place. Get easy-to-access tools, personalised timelines, expert tips, application templates, and exclusive webinars with admissions officers to help your student stand out. Visit usastudy.co.uk or call Phil at 0800 612 8271, because every student deserves the opportunity to shine with USA Study.
Okay, so we are back. We've been talking about teaching in Myanmar in a politically difficult situation. In terms of teacher resilience and creativity, we've, in the last couple of minutes, focused on teaching English language online. Phyo has been sharing about the availability of electricity being an issue, internet being an issue, and the considerations teachers have had, or the things teachers have had to reconsider as part of their practice in order to make these lessons available to them. One thing, Fio, that came to mind as during this past couple of minutes was with online ELT and what you're saying about teachers having to, how would you say, to when there's no internet, or when, because they've got no LMS, no learning management system, that they've got to use other channels of communication like WhatsApp or Facebook or Telegram to get materials to their students, and also for their students to submit work. Then I'm also thinking that for the teacher, it is a lot of work, isn't it? Sometimes people think, oh, online teaching, you don't have to leave your home and everything is there, and your students are there. But then when I'm thinking about online teaching and how it happens in your context, the context that you've just shared with me, is what I would do in an hour. I think your colleagues would do over 3-4 hours,
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yes.
Yeah, because I think what I also, at a personal level, for me, also my take on things with my students is, look, you've got your learning management system. I know you have internet. I know you have the devices.
Yeah,
I know you can access these materials. So here it is. Please do it, and I'll see you next week. And that's where our
yeah,
conversation ends, right?
yeah.
In your case, okay, it doesn't mean I'm not a dedicated teacher, right? It doesn't mean
Yeah,
I'm not a
exactly.
dedicated
Yeah, we have
teacher.
just a different context. Yeah, yeah.
You have a different context. So there's a lot
Yeah,
more communication, I would say, between the teacher and the students, right? The students
yeah,
would be needing a lot more support than mine would. The teachers would probably go more out of their way to ensure that their students have access to materials.
yes, yes. Exactly. So teachers have to adapt to, students' needs a lot. And this is only from the teacher side, from the student side as well. So they have
Mm-hmm.
also, yes, the similar challenges too. So we have, so teachers have been, the teachers I have known, my colleges, they have been, really, they care of, of taking care of their students, and and I think that's something, that keep teachers, going on, or
Mm.
regardless of the situation they are facing. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's an added responsibility, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
when I compare it to my privileged situation, I don't have that added responsibility. I don't know whether I should. Okay, now that like I said, these conversations are always very reflective for me. I don't know whether I should be having that added responsibility. But but for me, I think I I operate, you know, at the level where once the material's uploaded and you're
Yeah.
in the learning management system, I pass the responsibility to you. I don't chase after students. I don't, if somebody's not been in class for 2 weeks, or
Yeah.
if I don't hear from them from a time, I don't chase after them.
Mm.
Because in 98% of the time, I do know that they are fine,
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
do not live in a politically charged or difficult situation, unstable situation. Whereas I suppose with your colleagues, the added responsibility, I mean, there is a certain fear and a certain concern, isn't it? If you've sent material out and let's say you've not heard from 2 or 3 students in your setting, you kind of think, oh my goodness, are they okay? Are they
Yeah.
in a bunker somewhere, or did their family get taken away? um
Yeah.
so I would say that's an added mental strain and an
Yeah.
added sense
Exactly.
of responsibility. And
Yeah.
yeah, and you were saying then that you've developed a community of practice, I suppose, out of this to support each other.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So with the aim of, yeah, connecting teachers and then supporting teachers. So I, initiate a community of practice for teachers in Myanmar. It isn't just an online community. So yeah, we have been doing several CPD programs through that network. One thing we have been aiming is to do a kind of the non-judgmental discussion instead of judging a lot of teachers, because considering what they have been uh, encountering. So so the best way to do is to support each other, to share what we have done very well in our classrooms or with our learners, and then supporting and the kind of peer supported learning has been could be a good way of doing CPD for teachers in that context.
Yeah. So, essentially sharing good practice, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
when you share good practice, I suppose, I mean, this a lot of what I share on Teachers Talk Radio, all views my own.
yeah,
I think is even in times, and I suppose it's with everything in the world, even in challenging, difficult times, try and look for the positives, right? And I
yeah,
suppose sharing good practice is identifying the positive. So a teacher would say, hey, look, I discovered when I do this with the materials and the students like this particular thing, that's sharing good practice.
yeah.
You guys share materials as well?
Yes, so we do share materials, we do share the online training opportunities, or the good teaching practices. And currently, we are also doing something related with the doing classroom research. So through classroom research, teacher has also been sharing their problems and also how they tackle those kinds of problems. So with each other, yeah, yeah,
Mm. But, last question: do
yeah.
any of your teachers feel unsafe or insecure, in what you're doing? Is there, at the back of your minds, this sense that, oh, we're being watched? Or is it
Um,
just overall a politically difficult situation, but you still feel that by and large you have the freedom to teach English the way you see fit?
yeah, yeah. So currently, honestly, it's not just only teachers. Most of the people from Myanmar, they have been, feeling unsafe
Mm-hmm.
because of the military, and then also especially young people because of the, conscriptions by the military too.
Right.
So yeah, that's also something I think kind of mental health support or something we also need to consider when we work together with teachers or students from Myanmar or similar, contexts like in other countries. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um, and when we say yeah, so so some of the teachers, so it's kind of informal sharing, teacher sharing, something like they always trying to keep them so busy so that such kind of anxiety or worry can't get into their mind again and again. So
Right.
so yeah, I also had stories like this too. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that must be rough, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
there's the anxiety that you have because of things that you
yeah,
can actually see, right? You see things
yeah,
happening, like the story from, that sharing of your colleague who was in a bunker as she was, you know,
yeah,
so that's visible. And then there's still that anxiety at the back of your head where you kind of know you're not really safe,
yeah,
and then there's the anxiety for the children, the young people that you work with, and their
yeah,
family. Obviously, I know that in many cultures in the world, you're not just a teacher, right? When once you become a teacher, you're drawn into the families and the lives of those that you teach. Um, that's uh, I, I'm actually baffled. I'm actually speechless now.
yeah,
That feels sadly is all that we have time for today. I don't know if it's correct to say I loved hearing what you shared, because it's not necessarily stories of happiness, because, underlying the teacher success, underlying the work that you guys do that is valuable and successful, underlying that, there's so much stress, there's, so much more responsibility that I could never carry. There's the mental health strain, because you never know, right, what tomorrow
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
bring,
Yeah.
So, like you said, actually, like you said earlier in our conversation, we could talk about this for hours. And maybe if you're one day we will. One day, somewhere in a coffee shop, you and I will sit there and we will talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would love to. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a brief but really valuable conversation. Dear listeners, the stories of resilience and teacher creativity, just, I think, just being able to, overcome the challenges of, the limitations of technology, and kind of just reaching as many young people as you can as part of your teaching. They do push us to reflect on what we actually have. I have continuous internet. Sometimes my internet is bad, and I panic and I get angry, but I mean, that's still
Yeah.
not what Phyo's colleagues have. So they, we want to be thankful really for what we have, as well as what we don't have, actually, in our teaching settings and in our lives. I don't have that same sense of responsibility as Phyo's colleagues do. And Phyo, the stories that you shared, they're stories of strength, and I thank you for being so gracious with your time and so honest. Um,
Thank you
last
very much. Yeah. Yeah.
last question for you, Phyo. I don't know if you want to say it. You can say, don't want to answer. Do you see
Yeah.
yourself going back to Myanmar at some point?
As soon as the situation is getting better, yeah, I'm exactly going back.
Yeah.
Because all my
So,
families are there. Yeah. My
yeah.
colleagues, yeah. So yeah, all
Is
of
it
my
hard?
students, yeah.
Is it hard for you to be so far away and to see? No, that's a stupid question. It must be hard for you to be
Yeah.
so far away, and there's very little you can do, but I think you do your bit by also being
Yeah.
involved in those online classes, and for sharing your story here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. We're going to call it a day. Thank you, everyone,
Yeah.
for joining us. Thank you, Phyo. Thank you, all of Phyo's friends from Myanmar who've listened in. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support Teachers Talk Radio, and we will see you all in our next show.
Thank you, Kenda. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Phyo.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.